Welcome to the United States of Small Business, a podcast where the essence of American entrepreneurship is celebrated in every episode. With host John Quick at the helm, join us as we embark on a journey through the heart of the nation, uncovering the inspiring stories of small business owners from coast to coast. Experience the vibrant energy of bustling cities and the serene beauty of small towns, all while discovering how individuals are turning their entrepreneurial dreams into reality, even against the greatest odds. Each episode brings you face to face with the dreamers, creators, and doers who form the economic backbone of our country, all sharing their spirit of innovation and resilience. Whether you are in the early stages of sowing the seeds for your own business, scaling new heights in your current venture, or simply captivated by tales of grit and triumph, you are in the right place. Tune in on platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and beyond. For deeper insights and to connect with the heart and soul of America's main streets, visit UnitedStatesOfSmallBusiness.com. Subscribe to United States of Small Business with host John Quick now and be inspired by the powerful stories of entrepreneurship, community, and the unwavering pursuit of the American dream. Begin your journey of inspiration with us today.
I'm your host, John Quick, and today on the United States of Small Business, we welcome Rebekah Scott. Rebekah is at the forefront of empowering entrepreneurs through her initiatives like Encourager Podcasts, Rebekah Scott Designs, and 1948 Leather. She advocates for balanced, efficient systems that enhance both professional and personal life. Join us as we delve into her entrepreneur journey, her strategies for success, and her advice for those looking to harmonize their business ventures. So without further ado, Rebekah, welcome to the United States of Small Business podcast.
Thank you so much. I love the title of this podcast. It's fantastic.
Well, take me way back into the day, maybe when you first got started as an entrepreneur. Tell me what that story looked like. Why did you want to try this thing called being an entrepreneur out?
Okay. Well, actually, mine goes way back, and I have two distinct stories. One, I was a fourth grader, and I was making fleece Joker hats, and I was making them for my cousins for Christmas. And then I was like, okay, I can sell these on the playground. So then there I was selling Joker hats and mittens while everybody else was staying in line for kickball. So that was
That's
my first,
pretty awesome.
Yep. I was like, I think there's something here. But then my second very quickly entrepreneur lesson was, I'm only charging $5 for the hat. And I knew that I spent $7 a yard for the fabric. So I was like, oops, this is not sustainable. So I learned both like within a week of each other.
That's
So those are
awesome.
like my first entrepreneurial stories. And then ever since then, everything I did, I thought, man, I think I could 10x this. Like I did wedding hair for a cousin. And then I thought, shoot, I could charge people and do this on the side on Saturday mornings before I go to my other job, right? So again, the entrepreneur spirit. And then when we were poor newlyweds, when we got married super young, both in college, I knew I wanted to give some Christmas gifts. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I had fabric and I had my sewing machine. So I sewed purses because I love purses. And then they started taking off and I started getting calls about like, hey, can you make one for my friend and everything? And then I remembered I do need to charge more than the amount of materials at least.
You got to be making money on these things.
Yeah. And so then that started to, I wouldn't say take off because that's always a gross exaggeration. Or when people say, and the rest is history, I'm like, no, not in the entrepreneur journey. Like those steps matter, right? But it did. I started getting enough orders. And again, I did the math wrong on when I could quit my full-time job because I was like, this is easy. If all of the shows look like this, meaning craft shows, if they all gross this amount, I can definitely say goodbye to radio without realizing there are weather that happens at shows. And maybe people don't go to the show because it's bad advertised. So learned some lessons there as well. Those were my first entrepreneur lessons.
Nice. So what was the moment that you thought, man, I could actually do this for a living, and you made that transition to doing entrepreneur type stuff full time?
Okay. Well, I wanted to have children, so that was a big drive right there. And I wanted to stay home with them. I didn't want to put them in daycare. So mine was more of a familiar thing of like, if I could work this up enough that I could have a whole bunch of children, then I could do this. So that was actually more of my pull. And then I went to it's probably like my third or fourth trunk show. That was back in the days when women would get together and then you would like custom make something like a Mary Kay party or a Tupperware party or something like that. And I saw how much fun it was and all the joy and everybody like picking out different things. And I truly believe that when you create, you have joy. And that's when I was like, I want to do this. I'm all in. Like, I don't care if we make nothing. This feeling that these women are getting, I want to keep doing this. I want to manufacture this over and over and over again. So that was my first moment. And I stayed up until 2 a.m. sewing after that
Nice.
show. And then I got up at 4 a.m. to do it again. Like, I just was like, more, 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 more. So I kind of found my passion that week and was like, whatever I got to tell. So I went into my boss, told her, like, can you reduce my hours to 30 so I can do this? I was honest about that. And then I reverse engineered when I wanted to be done. I was like, well, I want to start having a kid here in a year. So in 6 months, I want to be done with radio.
Nice. And
Yeah.
did that happen?
No, I was done in radio in about 2 months.
Nice. That's awesome.
Because I wasn't a very good employee. Once you know what you want, I was like, guys,
yeah.
you don't want me anymore.
So somewhere along the lines, you probably had tons of people asking you, how the heck are you doing this? How are you doing what you love to do for a living? This seems amazing. We want to, I want to do the same. Somewhere along the lines,
Yeah.
you began to teach other people how to do this kind of stuff. Tell me what that was like.
Well, you're right. So when I started I have 4 kiddos and I was running this purse brand and we had, like 1 to 200 purses in our booth and about 300 accessories. And they're looking and going, wait a minute, how are you doing this? And then I know those are entrepreneur spirit people too, where they're like, this does look cool and this looks like fun, but how are you doing this? And I couldn't answer how I was doing it in the 2 to 3 minutes that I had this exchange with this woman, because mostly I wanted to sell them a purse because I have that spirit too. And then I was like, but I know I can teach this. So that's actually when and I had radio background. So I jumped on a microphone and I'm like, I'll just teach them because I'm not doing anything that anybody else couldn't do. I just had some systems that really, really worked so that I can continue to have my enlarged family and continue to do my brands, because I have 3 of them now. And so I hopped on a microphone and started doing podcasting before everybody was podcasting, by the way. I
Nice.
feel like those of us that have done it for a long time should say that. And then that started taking off, as far as like people then would come to the shows and they didn't want the purses. They wanted to know more about how I was doing my system so that they could do whatever they wanted to love. So it was fun.
That's awesome. So if somebody cruises on your website, they'll notice that
Yes.
faith plays a role in what you do.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Has that been something that maybe separates you from the pack of like the lots and lots of people in the entrepreneur space?
Probably a lot. I wish it wasn't as distinctive as it used to be, but yes, faith guides all of my steps. And so in the Bible, the very first verse is, in the beginning God created. So I always say I just followed suit. Like, I just wanted to create. And so I teach people how to create, whether they're creating systems for their families, like a food system and a me system or whatever it looks like to operate their family next to their work, or I create awesome purses and teach women how to custom make something that makes them come alive. My faith plays a big part in like how I pursue the podcasting, is consistently asking God, like, what will this mean to operate as I do at this high level? Help me teach the others how to do it. Because some of it is innate. Like, this is just how I am. So how can I make sure that I make it accessible to as other people that want to do the same thing, that are being told the message, I want to work and I want to have a family? Because sometimes the message for women, and maybe it's for men now more too, is like, you have to choose. You're going to do work really well this week, and then you're going to do home life really well next week, but you can't do them both well together. And I don't think that's true. And I don't think we're supposed to operate like that. And so for me, when I do any of my podcasting or any of my coaching, it's about doing both of them well, because I think God ordered them together and he gave us each unique gift to do it.
That's awesome. So who's somebody that you've looked up to over the years? You've experienced quite a bit of success, put a ton of work in, doing podcasts when it wasn't cool to do podcasts. Who's somebody that you've looked up to along the way that's been kind of like a hero in your life, and why?
I super like Bob Goff. His message is so attainable. Like, he makes dreaming big seem like, what's the big deal? Of course we're all going to dream big. And so that, when I started following his books first, and then I've actually gotten the privilege of getting coaching from him, and I've attended some of his retreats. He has a little bit more dream worthy than I do in the Midwest here. I think sometimes we like limit, we're very practical people. And so his view of like, well, of course you're going to do it, just start with this, has really influenced how I also help people to dream big as well.
Bob Goff is pretty amazing. He he has a place way up in Canada where next to a camp that I used to go to when I was in high
Yay!
school. And
Yes.
he when we were on this thing called summer staff, all the people that kind of work the camp in the summer, he would always invite us over, and
Yes. He talks
for
about this.
snacks or lunch or whatever. He was the coolest guy ever, for an 18, 19-year-old kid to get he just had an open door policy for anybody that wanted to come and hang out and have a snack. So I remember him when I was in high school, and he's probably even got cooler over the years.
Yes, he has. And that's so funny because when I was there, he would talk about like we'd invite everybody around the area. There was a summer camp nearby. We told him to come here and rest and restore. And I'm like, dude, oh my gosh, like his just approach to openness and availability and dreaming is just amazing. It's amazing.
He's a cool guy. So
Yeah.
what's some advice you give to somebody? There's going to be folks listening in here that want to go live the American dream, right? They don't know how to start. They don't know what to do. They think, they've been told maybe by whoever that they aren't smart enough, aren't creative enough, aren't all those things. What's some of the advice you give to somebody to just, that's just starting out in their journey?
Well, the first thing I'd always say is just 1%. I think it'll be written on my tombstone. It'll be like, well, she 1%ed everything. Because if you do something at just 1%, so I mean, whatever the big dream is, whatever the transition is, whatever the change is, whatever the role is that you're starting to assume, like you're going to be a mom, you're going to be a dad, you're going to be a grandparent, whatever it is, just think of it in the tiniest way possible and most attainable. It's just to 1% it. So it's one Google search, it's one email, it's one family date, it's one board game, like 1%, whatever the large idea is. And then when you sit in that 1%, you're like, I think I could do a little bit more. And so the next day you do a little bit more. And then it starts snowballing. But nobody ever started something by jumping the goal of the ladder to here, 6 feet above. They start with the next 6 inches of the ladder. And that's like a John Acuff thing too. I thought that's like, that's really what it is. It's just 1%ing a little bit of that dream. And then also, if you are overwhelmed with everything you have going on, you feel really chaotic and overwhelmed, like there's no way I could pursue this dream because I've got all of this. By 1%ing it, you're reminding your true self, like, this is possible, even at just like little tiny 1%. I didn't start all 3 brands right, all of them all together. I started making one purse for my cousin's like college friends, right? So that's how it starts and matures. And also in those little tiny increments, you can change gears if it's not actually what you wanted. So you get to experiment a little bit more rather than like, well, I have to 100% and I've got to hustle through it. I'm like, no. Don't hustle something you actually in the end don't want. So just that 1% allows wiggle room with both pursuing it or letting it be and going to a different 1% thing.
So what's some of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way? Because, it's not all high fives and handshakes and hugs. There's definitely lots of ups and downs in entrepreneur life. What's some of the biggest lessons you've learned on your journey?
Oh man, well, there's so many, and all of my lessons are really expensive. So that's the part where I keep asking God, like, could we make them less expensive? One of the biggest lessons I've learned, and I have to keep learning it, which is a little bit frustrating that I don't learn it the first time, is that to trust the vision that I have for my own brand, to trust that vision that it is truly what I see, and to tell the people around you that you are the authority with the vision that you have. And I think it gets a little bit cloudy when you start involving other people, but we do need other people. So don't take that message away. You need other people, but sit with yourself and be really clear about what the vision is for what you want. Because otherwise, when they put in their good efforts, they're not mean-spirited about it. They're good efforts about what it should look like and what it should feel like. Trust your authority. And so in the beginning, I wanted to do, we were like 2 or 3 years in, and I asked my sales reps, which by the way was like a twin sister, a cousin, and then the other gal didn't know as well, but like people I knew, right? How we could get more sales. And they're my sales reps. So that would be the appropriate people to ask, right? And they said, how about a catalog? And I was like, oh, great idea. Catalog. Yep, let's do a catalog. So I was 10 grand into making the catalog, doing the photo shoot, doing the printing, 10 grand in when and I was like, okay, make my little chart. We got a little chart here about how to pay off 10 grand. We're going to get after it. By the way, I had to sell livestock. We farm and ranch. I had to sell a cow. I had to tell my husband, like, can we sell a cow to do the print job? This is how entrepreneur I am. Anyways, I make my chart. Guess how much we make in 6 months on the catalog?
$40.
$600. $600. I was like, what? So then thankfully my husband was like, hey, can we sit with this one for a little bit? Let's like decipher it in the kindest way possible. He's very loving. And I was like, what happened here? Well, I asked the wrong audience what they wanted. I asked my sales reps, which made sense to me at the time. But what I should have done is ask my customers. They're the ones who are paying the bills and keeping the business alive. If I would ask my customers, I already knew the answer. They would say, we want a better website. So I trashed the catalog. I don't know if I sold livestock at that time. That's a little fuzzy. Poured efforts into making a new website that was more custom and they get to pick all the things. And that's still what we have to this day. Then it took off and we paid off the website and the catalog mistake in about 8 months because I asked the right audience what they wanted. And then the lace and story part of that is like trusting my own authority. The catalog was bad, you guys, and I knew it. But I was like, well, this photographer has been in business for this long and she must know what she's doing. And the print job was really confusing on how to like order the bags. I was like, well, but they've been in business for this long. They must know how to make my custom website that I know so much about. So I left the authority and just the lack of knowledge of like, well, if they've been in business for this long, they must know what they're doing. That's not always true. And so I learned like, okay, be clear on what I want. And it's okay to be unclear on what I want and to know and to be able to say, I don't like this. I didn't know how to do that either. You know, at the time I was like, it's fine. It's fine. And the catalog was not good and it tanked. So now when I approach things, I go, I have my own set of authority, even if you've only been doing it for a year, especially if you've been doing it for 15 plus years, you should be able to say, nope, not quite right. This is what I want.
Nice. So now one of the things you do is help other moms, if I'm not mistaken, and to kind of do this in their own life. You have a thing called the Clarity Blueprint. Talk to me about what that is, because there's going to be folks that listen to this and think, I want to do whatever this person is doing and I want to figure out how to learn from her. So sounds like there is opportunity for that. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Tons. Well, you can listen to my podcast. It's called The Encourager. So guys, that's your 1%. Just listen to that. Binge listen to it. There's tons of episodes. And then we have a Clarity Blueprint. So it's just a membership community where I coach for 2 hours a month with my co-coach, Tiffany. And we teach basically 1% things so you can make purposeful progress without feeling like a fire hose of information. Because Lord knows we don't need any more content, right? Everybody, especially entrepreneurs, because we're like, well, maybe I should try that. Maybe I should. So the sheer amount of content coming in. So we just really simplified it into the things that we know will help you make purposeful progress. And then I also have a digital course, and that's called the Encourager Academy. And that's where I coach. It's less than 6 hours. Again, we don't need a ton more content, but it's working on the systems in your life so you can do both work and home life really well together, because it is possible. I am doing it. I am joyful. I am not waking up at 4 a.m. either, guys. Not a trend this mom is willing to try. So I've got some things that I've tried that really work. And so I give examples of that, but it's very self-guided so that you can kind of focus on the things that matter for your unique family.
That's awesome. And so folks listening in, I'm going to put a link to all that stuff in the podcast description.
Thank you.
And I believe you also have a book called Equipped to Execute. What led you to write that?
Oh, that's a funny story. Well, people kept listening to the podcast and they're like, I just want something tangible. Can you give me something tangible? I was like, cool, I've got write a book on my bucket list, or Bob Goff would call it ambitions list. It's like, I'll write a book. So I met with a couple of people. I started writing my outline, and then I realized I'm 6 months pregnant. And when this book comes out, when we should be doing the launches, I should be really concentrating on my newborn. So I actually paused the book for 15 months so that I could apply the appropriate time to my purse and my 4 kiddos. And then got back into it. So it was also permission of like, you know what, put it aside. And it was great because I had more perspective when I revisited the book and then finished it and launched it and all of that. So yes, the book is a really good read about how I got started, but then also I continue to be so joyful and continue to do it all.
Nice. Well, folks listening in, if you email me, I'm going to send the first person to email me a copy of this book. So
thanks.
Email me, John, JOHN, at UnitedStatesOfSmallBusiness.com. The first person to email me, I'm going to send you a book, and I'm sure I'll get an email very quick. We do this with other folks, and folks are very quick to email. So you have a phrase, and you say on your website, own who you are. What do you mean by that?
Well, own who you are uniquely made. Similar to the conversation we had, like it's okay to be exactly who God created you to be. We get messages of all these things that we should be or we should do, especially as entrepreneurs and what we should be doing. But I want you to get really quiet with yourself and ask yourself the own unique things that he put inside of you and to be okay with owning this. I am super creative. I am super energetic, or I am super low key. Those things are okay. Those are innate inside of you. And I want you to own who exactly you were meant to be.
I love that. So 20 minutes has gone by in a flash. Rebekah, any last minute thoughts here before we head off? Floor is yours.
Okay. Normally people would take the time to do a sales pitch here, but I'm not going to do that. I want you to think of one concept that will drastically change things. Okay. I want you to time everything for 1 week, especially the busy, chaotic mom that's listening right now who's like, I don't know how I could do this. Okay. Time everything for just 1 week. Run around with a journal so much that people are like, what is this journal about? And you'd be like, give me a minute. And in that week, you're taking note of like, making supper only takes 30 minutes, or making supper takes 2 hours. Checking my email takes 3 hours. Checking my email takes 45 minutes. Getting ready takes me this long. Running the trips to the practices takes this long. When you start taking note of the length of time your week involves with all those different things, you will feel so much less overwhelmed because you don't have to answer the question, I don't know how long it takes. And then you get pockets of 20 to 30 minutes where you're like, I'm not going to do anything. What do? You scroll your phone. That's a solid 20 or 30 minutes that you could do a few chores that you noted like, the dishwasher only took 4 minutes and I definitely spent 20 minutes complaining about it. Right. And I didn't gain anything from scrolling for 30 minutes, but I did gain when I asked my kiddo, like, hey, let's dig into this. What's going on at school again? So just spend a week taking note of the time it takes to do life and decide which ones you want to like improve on.
That's awesome. Well, folks, go check out Rebekah at encouragepodcast.com. And where can they find you on social media and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, awesome. Okay. So if you want a cute purse, go to designyourownpurse.com. And on social media, it is The Encourager for both Instagram and for Facebook, The Encourager Podcast.
Nice. Well, Rebekah, we wish you nothing but success here from the United States of Small Business Podcast. We hope you have phenomenal rest of your week. And folks listening in, I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your week as well. Until next time, I'm John Quick from the United States of Small Business Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.